What's up, front line? It's your girl Samar. Welcome back for another episode, guys. This week we're going to continue on our mission. Israel, America is Israel, all right? And Napoleon Bonaparte is looking like a Levite, guys. Simeon, Levi, he's one or the other. You know, in this van, shout out to everybody in the van. Shout out to Sister Yolanda and Mama Lee, the matriarchs. Shout out to Unifears and Chanel. I know y'all listening. That's fam. Shout out to Mimi, my shotgun rider. She gonna roll me up too. Don't worry. This shout out to Israel, guys. Israel was in a car accident this last week, and I haven't had time to call him. Let me let y'all know what's going on. So, hold on one second, guys. I moved back to the land. And as y'all know, I needed to move to the land. And let me tell you something. All the powers that be were trying to stop me from moving to the land. I don't believe in no Satan and devil and all of that dumb stuff. I believe in something tangible. I believe we walk amongst Satan and devils every goddamn day. And as a matter of fact, we're going to talk about a few of them today. We're going to run over some toes. You know, in the van we push forward. You understand what I'm saying? And in the van, sometimes we run over toes. Toes that shouldn't be there. Toes that should not be there. Because you have no way to heal my daughter. Okay? You're going to keep saying peace, peace, when there is no peace. Okay? Ain't no peace. Man has been in control. Not mother's sons. Let me be clear. A mother's son is someone like Israel. Right? Shout out to you, Israel. Israel, you know what I'm saying? Today I'm going to put you on the front line. Listen to this. A mother's son supports the mother. They're going to call you a beta for that, right? Beta is the bet, is the bat, is the Beth, is the daughter. They're calling you a mama's boy when they call you a beta son. Because the alpha is the toxicity of the patriarchy. We need you to be an alpha male. We need you to beat women. We need you to kill people. This is what that toxicity does. You know, I load cases up on the community page daily about what the other sons are doing. Okay? Putting antifreeze in their baby's milk. Okay? This is what other sons are doing. Because they don't want to pay child support. Okay? And don't get me wrong, there's some women out here, you know, that are under that harlot lifestyle. You know what I mean? Where you're so concerned with being his muse that you don't care that mama has made you a chief. You don't care. Yes, the name Sarah in Hebrew, they're going to tell you is princess or noblewoman or chieftainess. I told you about that ESS on the end, right? How they try to dumb her down because she couldn't have been the ruler. We have to soften it and make her go after him. Listen, guys, queen probably came before king. But queen is one of their words, so I don't like it. I like chief. It is minister, leader, or chief. The name signifies royalty, matriarchy, and authority. Particularly, it's saying as the wife of Abraham and mother of Isaac. However, as the wife of Abraham, go back and read the story. Sarah ain't told to call him Abraham. Abraham is told to call her Sarah, while he out here lifted his hands to the Most High, which means Allah. Okay? We see the Islamic wrinkles all throughout somehow we worship in Israel. I'm trying to tell you something, but you need to pay attention. If you ain't paying attention, you're going to miss who the chief was. You're going to miss who Israel is truly linked to. All right? So now that I've done this, let's go to no man's land. That's what we're here for, right? And I personally wonder why it was called no man's land. Okay? I feel like it was a little place where we had to hold it down. I'm going to show you the maps of the Keystone Pipeline, how it all overlays. I'll show y'all this all. Watch this. We watched it. All right, let's go. Let's open up the folder. Let's get to the business of why we're here. Everybody who follows me should already know Sarah's cheap, but we might have some new people amongst us. You know, people that watch, maybe they want to debunk some of my information. Try if you may. Please, I'm willing. I've been here for 3 years saying anybody, that means you listening, trying to debunk, bring it. Bring it. The proof is right here. That's why you ain't brought it. Drop Nation ain't going to say my name. I'll say theirs boldly because I am armed with truth. You're slapping the Most High on the back of jackets, right? MHOE. Well, you know what? When Samar came with that, the Most High is Allah, you would have had to repent of all of that, according to your own research, sir. Right? Right, Mr. Marcus? According to your own research, you would have had to repent, and you ain't done it yet. You are still misleading a group of people over there who believe that Judah is the noble home when Ephraim was the firstborn, when Ephraim is a cake unturned. Pay attention. It all went to Ephraim. They ain't going to say my name. Crazy? Because to say my name would be to highlight what I'm saying over here. And they want to continue to sell jackets. There you go. So when I tried to give you half of the land, you weren't fit for half of my land. My land is noble land, okay? We got that mound. Never forget. Offer me up an altar of earth and don't have no cut stones on it. And let's get to how these mofos got this Louisiana purchase, because we're going to bring back in Lewis is Levi, for anybody new, and Clark is the scribe. So you have the priest and the scribe. This is the way they did things. I want to talk about these cities of refuge, right? These cities of refuge that Levi gets, right? Because these cities of refuge were right here. And I got a feeling they're still here. Think about those sanctuary cities. Who's running those guys? Why you think when this mofo became 45, 47, got into the power, that picture of the Pope wearing a Pope hat went out? He said, I'm taking back control. You ain't got no sanctuaries here. It's all mine. Watch what I tell you. Look at this. Numbers 35, 6 through 7. Now, and pause for a second real quick. Shout out Mama Lee. You see, I've been working on my cursing. Pause, guys. You know, I'm getting old because I forgot what I was going to say, guys. All right, so let's just push through these numbers. It might come back to me. All right, now among the cities which will, let's start over. Now, among the cities which you will give to the Levites, you shall appoint 6 cities of refuge, to which a manslayer may flee. And to these you shall add 42 cities. So all the cities you shall give the Levites shall be 48. These you shall give with their common land. Now, was the Levites supposed to have anything? No, they were supposed to be the priests. They weren't supposed to have anything. But yet land is being divided out. And everybody, I'm a Levite. I'm the Judahite. All while these mofos stealing land. That's all they doing is stealing land. Okay, let's keep going. Pause. Y'all know I don't want coffee out here. All right. So in ancient Israel, the law stated that if a man killed another person accidentally, he had the right to run to the nearest city of refuge. It was a safe place to go so that the relative of the deceased, the kinsman redeemer, could not enter and take the man's life. Now pause. These mofos said, thou shalt not kill, right? But the Levites, is letting people hide here that kill, right? And allowing people later on to redeem, right? So we can be certain there's a whole lot of killing going on, right? You see, it was his job. It was to avenge his relative's death. See, the kinsman redeemer. Cities of priests. The cities, right, were populated totally by Levites, the priestly tribe, whose job it was to protect the one seeking refuge from avenger of death. As long as the man remained within the walls of the city, he was completely safe. So these were like mercenaries, okay? All right, the priest got them, but the priest could probably later send these mofos out. And we see this type of stuff. And he would be completely safe because of the priest. See, I told you nobody was safe with the priest. But go figure. A murderer was safe. Sacagawea wasn't safe with the priest, an 11-year-old. But a murderer could be completely safe in these cities. You see this? I want you to see the hypocrisy in this. I want you to use your moral turpitude to understand this shit is wrong. Whether he's the priest or not the priest, according to their standards. Okay? Open your eyes, guys. There's a bit of a downside through the person had to remain there among the Levites until the man who was priest at the time of the incident died. All right? So they belonged to the priest. Thereafter, he was free to return to his own city without fear of reprisal by the kinsman redeemer. The good part of the deal is that the man was accorded all the privileges of the priestly tribe, who were given all the best food, the nicest clothing, and the best housing. Who would ever want to leave? Sacagawea was not safe with the priest. But if you was a murderer, you could be given the best food, the nicest clothing, the best housing. Who would ever want to leave? Wouldn't you? It sounds like you would want to kill somebody just to get there. Okay? Depending on how you're living. This is some crazy stuff. So they're going to name these cities in Joshua. And I could swear Shechem is in Ephraim. So Joshua's hijacking. This don't look right. First of all, Joshua's a man, so I got questions. But anyway, they named the 6 cities. Right? In Joshua 20, we got Kadesh in Galilee, Shechem in the mountains of Ephraim, like they wanted you to kill these people, Kirth Arbor, which is in Hebron, which is Chevron, which means confederacy, right? In the mountains of Judah and on the other side. Then you got Bezer in the wilderness on the plain, which was from Reuben, Ramoth, and Gilead, which Gilead stood with Ephraim from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. There were 6 cities of refuge in all, 3 located on the west side of the Jordan, 3 on the east side. They were all well marked and easily accessible. 5 of them were situated on the top of the mountains, with the exception of Bezer. This is a perfect depiction of Psalms 12:1, 1 through 2, which says, I will lift up mine eyes upon the hills, from which cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which make heaven and earth. Oh, so check it out. They're going to give us some secrets in the language. Hebrew is a language of picture writing like Chinese. Every word, name, and thing mentioned in Scripture, even numbers, all add to the richness and meaning of the text. What I told y'all. What do Samar do over here besides get into the names? Who got it that? Mama, all praise my mama. Check it out. Kadesh means sanctuary. We're down here. Shechem is the shoulder. The shoulder. Okay? Which I keep finding in the Ohio, Mississippi region, guys. Watch what I tell you. Look up the shoulder of the mounds. I got to bring that in, guys. All right. Hebron means fellowship. Bullshit. Hebron means confederacy. Okay? Which is a plotting. Bezer means fortress. Ramoth means highly exalted. Golan means rejoicing. And we know that Solomon is crowned in Gihon, which Gihon means a gusher, which flows profusely. That's how we know it's oil. It's an oil well. A gusher means, literally, go look it up, an oil well that flows profusely. Okay, so this has always been about the oil. All right, put them together and they spell out the message for us. A sanctuary is, let's just say they're going to put his, because they like to put his everywhere, but it's hers. A sanctuary is the shoulder offered in fellowship, a fortress to highly exalt us with rejoicing. And they going to put, that was JC. So there were six cities of refuge. 6, however, is the number of man, and as such is incomplete. So they want to bring in their thought process of the 7 and all of this other stuff. I just brought this in to show y'all that there were these cities of refuge, right? There were these cities of refuge. Okay. And notice Shechem is not far from Shiloh. This is Ephraim's territory. You see? And not far from them is Judah plotting, right below them. You see that? You see? Shechem's territory and Hebron. So there was these cities of refuge, huh? Now, I want y'all to get into this place called No Man's Land. And that is the background of the photo we got up there. You see they saying that it's public land up there. You see that landing strip at the very top of the map, right? It's outlined. Now, I want you to notice that the area in red, right, is not broken up in these blocks like the ones below. You see? You see that? Like lots, right? They cast lots. Like lots, right? Notice the area in red that's not done to it, right? Notice that, but there's a panhandle at the top, right, of that area. And you're going to see Colorado, and this is just above Texas, which is broken up into looking like lots, right? New Mexico, the landing strip is above the Texas area. Well, this is going to look old because this was the New Mexico area. So it's going to sound confusing because some places weren't places yet. Get it? Okay. So, or maybe they weren't called that yet. The phrase no man's land was used to describe the present-day Oklahoma panhandle. See that panhandle? Which is just above Texas, guys. At the time, it was neither part of a U.S. territory, right? Because it wasn't part of the United States, right? It wasn't part of that Confederacy. This strip of land, measuring approximately 34 miles wide by 166 miles long, was simply unassigned land owned by the United States government. Meaning that no one could legally settle the region. While the term no man's land was first applied in the late 19th century, ownership of this region had been in question as early as the 1830s, and the area was created as a result of 3 different boundary events that occurred between 1836 and 1850. No man's land's southern and western boundaries were created as a direct result of compromise of 1850 Texas, which became a U.S. state in late 1845. That's why I told you some of these places weren't places yet, but that is the top of Texas. Okay, where did they come in at? According to me, the front line. You got Imperial County. You got Crane County. What did they say in Aesop's book? The frogs asked for a king, but they got a crane, right? What do you need to, kind of rig is used to get oil out of the soil besides a crane? It's a crane, guys. Let me make sure that I'm using earbuds. Sorry about that. Touched my earbud. It felt like it was going to fall out. All hell broke loose. So you can be sure that that region right there definitely had the folks that like to strike the rock, right? They were striking the rock like hell in Texas, okay? This is where they were getting their money. And they knew there were other places that had more oil. So they were trying to get to the stuff, man. And this is what this Louisiana Purchase was about. Let's get to it. No man's land, southern and western boundaries were created as a direct result of compromise, right, of 1850. Texas, which became a U.S. state in late 1845, fortified its claim to territory north of the 36-degree 30 line, west of the 103rd meridian, in return for the assumption of up to $10 million in Texas debt by the United States government. The U.S. required that Texas, a slave-holding state. Why does that bring this home? Who told you? Who was the first person to enslave Israel? Solomon. Solomon enslaved Israel. This is the first, listen, that was the first mention of slaves in the book. It was from Solomon enslaving Israel. Listen, he did it to his own people. Judah enslaved Israel. This was a slave-holding state, guys. Where you go? They used the 36-degree 30 line as its northern boundary in order to comply with the Missouri Compromise, which stated that slavery was illegal north of this line. See? The matriarchies ain't playing that stuff. They don't believe in no slavery. The Compromise of 1850 also established the large New Mexico territory, whose eastern boundary met the new western border of Texas along the 103rd meridian. So here's some maps for you guys that like maps. Listen to this. No man's land. The northern boundary was established by the Kansas-Nebraska Act in 1854. The act itself was highly significant for its repeal of the Missouri Compromise, meaning that individual territories could decide the slavery issue on their own regardless of where they fell on the map. Okay, this is the men usurping the women's authority and saying, no, slavery is completely fine. You're going to see. Let's get down. You know, y'all can pause this and slow read some of this stuff on your own. I'm trying to get... Prior legislation suggests that this area was, in fact, part of Indian territory. The Indian Removal Act of 1830, which was narrowly passed in the House, provided an exchange of lands with the Indians residing in any of the states or territories and for their removal east of the river Mississippi. Okay, they wanted access to this river. They wanted access to the river. No man's land was considered Cherokee land up until the Civil War. People were fighting over this little territory. And you will see, what is this? Okay, the formation of some of these states. But look at the little lots, right? When they take over, you start seeing these little blocks. Okay, pay attention to the little box. It goes from open land to little blocks. Civil War saw a division among the Cherokee Nation members. Some were allegiant to the Union, right? Where'd it go? And some were under the what? Confederacy. See? See, I told y'all all of this is the timeline. This has to be the timeline, the split of northern and southern, quote, Israel. No, this is the invasion of Israel by the southern kingdoms. Okay? Ain't no split. To your tents, Israel. What do we have with the house of David? Especially when David married a goddamn Canaanite right at the beginning. No, I think not. That would mean JC is a Canaanite too. Gotta go. We over here in Ephraim's territory. Over the next 15 to 20 years, no man's land would continue to be identified as public lands on the maps. Finally, in 1885, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that this land was not part of the Cherokee Outlet, and they declared it public domain. In 1890, the Organic Act created both Oklahoma and Indian territories, with the unassigned public lands included as part of Oklahoma Territory. As a result, no man's land was renamed Beaver County, with the land office as the county seat of Beaver County. But it's in Oklahoma. Unfortunately, this region became the epicenter of the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. I wonder why. Because they were striking the rock. Okay? This is why we got that Dust Bowl. See, Mama said don't strike no rocks in here. But they know that it's lucrative. So they're going to continue to do this type of stuff. Okay? Now, notice they said it was under that Oklahoma territory between Texas, Oklahoma, and like Colorado, right? Pay attention, because we're going to bring in that map of the Louisiana Purchase next. Okay? Because it's definitely under Levi's control. Oh, I don't want to bring that one in yet. Tell you why. Why did the priest travel with a scribe when they explored? The priest likely traveled with a scribe when exploring land to ensure accurate documentation and record keeping. In many historical contexts, priests were seen as spiritual leaders and decision makers, while scribes were skilled in writing and recording details such as maps, observations, agreements, or events. This partnership allowed the priest to focus on spiritual or ceremonial duties, while the scribe ensured important information was preserved for practical or legal purposes. So he's just like a lawyer, okay? The scribe is just like the lawyer, and the priest is like the king, I suppose. If the name Lewis can mean Levi, and the name Clark can mean scribe, aren't the explorers named Lewis and Clark a priest and a scribe? Yes, it's an interesting interpretation if we break down the name. Lewis, often considered a variant of Lewis guys. And that matters because what do we call it? The Louisiana Purchase. It can be linked to Levi, which in Hebrew tradition is associated with the Levites, priestly figures in ancient Israel, given all of these cities and given these lands, these places of refuge for killers. Clark, derived from the Old English cleric or clericus, is historically referred to a cleric or a scribe, someone associated with writing or record keeping. When you go to the court, who you got to go see for your records? The court clerk, right? Right? They are holding the record. The interpretation suggests that the names Lewis and Clark could symbolically represent a priest and a scribe, adding a layer of metaphor to their historic roles as explorers and recorders of the new frontier. While there's no evidence that their name was intentionally symbolic in this way, it is an intriguing lens through which to view the partnership. No, there's evidence because I discovered it. Okay? They didn't want you to discover it. But what do Samar do? She be digging into names around here. Okay? And they kept saying that that V was new. So I say to myself, well, if the V is new, that must have been a W. And what do we got? Now, I want to bring in the Half Kings later on. So I think I should get out of this. But I got to remember to come back to this folder later on. Got to remember. Uh-oh, it went to my folders. Don't I look cute? I got to put this down here. Because I want to come back to you later on. Where was we? Now I done messed myself up. Louisiana. Let's start here. Now they're going to put Sacagawea was around 13 or 16 years old when she married. Bullshit, because we already went into this. She was 11. She was 11. Talking about some accounts say she was 13 when she was sold into marriage. She was 11. They want to soften the blow. Others say she was 16 when she had her son. Bullshit. Sources vary slightly, but generally place her age at marriage around 13 or 16. Noticing she was captured at 12. Bullshit. She was likely sold or gambled by Hadatsu. Her son she gave birth to. Her son's name was John the Baptist. Sharp a no. Gave birth to him at Fort Mandan. I'm bringing her in because her story matters too. Now pay attention to this map. Right? Don't you see that no man's land? Don't you see it? Look under the P. Follow that purchase. Follow the P down, and you see that panhandle just above what is now Texas. They needed this area. Levi needed this area. And I'm going to show you why. The Louisiana Purchase was the 1803 acquisition of about 828,000 square miles of territory from France by the United States for $15 million, which doubled the size of the young republic and paved the way westward expansion. This deal, a major achievement by President Thomas Jefferson, right, stretched from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. Rocky Mountains. See what they got? Listen, man. They took the dew from heaven, the everlasting hills, and the fat of the earth at one swoop with this purchase, right? I want you to pay attention to what they took. You see that purple outline? You're going to see that purple outline when we get to the Keystone Pipeline. While the U.S. bought the Louisiana Territory from France, the treaty was signed in April for $15 million. France had controlled the territory but faced financial difficulties and the failure of its slave revolt in Haiti, prompting Napoleon to sell. See, they couldn't get Haiti under control. The U.S. initially only wanted to buy New Orleans but was offered the entire territory. See? This is through the Lewis and Clark expedition. They acquired this land. It doubled the territory. Let's get down to Napoleon's motivation. France, under Napoleon, sold the territory partly because they lost troops in Haiti, in the Haitian Rebellion, and needed funds for an impending war with Britain. Listen to this. President Jefferson, a strict constructionist, questioned the constitutionality of such a large purchase. Okay. It paved the way for the famous Lewis and Clark expedition to explore the new territory. So you're going to say the variant is there. Yes, the name Clark. I bring in some more facts for you guys. All my fact lovers. Shout out to you, Israel. The priest and the scribe are frequently mentioned together in the gospel, right? And it's no wonder we're going to see John do it, right? It's John the Baptist. You know, you guys can do your own study. You know, you can pause this. And I brought in the cities of refuge. Yes, the Levites were given specific cities, including 6 designated as the cities of refuge. Now, pay attention when we get to the pipeline, guys. You're going to see cities bold there. And I question, were these Levi's 6 cities? Watch. God commanded Moses today to make 6 Levite cities as where a manslayer could flee and live comfortably. Better than Sacagawea did. These cities protected those who killed someone unintentionally, from the avenger of blood until they stood trial before the assembly. Joshua established these cities. Safety, justice, impartiality, and foreshadowing. Must be nice. Poor Sacagawea ain't get that. Most of the land that became Oklahoma. I wanted to know if Oklahoma was in fact in this territory. You see that? Yes, because Oklahoma is where those everlasting hills was. Ain't that where Tulsa, they became the oil capital of the world? Wasn't it in Oklahoma? Huh? Didn't Judah make sure to wipe out Ephraim from that territory to gain control of it? Watch how it happened. Most of the land that became Oklahoma was included in the Louisiana Purchase, acquired by the U.S. from France, encompassing the vast territory west of the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. See, the dew from heaven, the everlasting hills, which contain present-day Oklahoma. While the borders weren't perfectly defined initially, the entire area of modern Oklahoma fell within the scope of that massive land acquisition. Why they wanted it? Why did they want Oklahoma, guys? Why? Why? Huh? Because Tulsa is the oil capital of the world. That's why they wanted Oklahoma. Okay? That's why. No man's land, aka the disputed territory, along the Red River, right, where today's Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana meet, was a no man's land, a place without governmental authority, right, between the Sabine River. No governmental authority was able to exist here, guys. But the interpretations of no man's land leave out the Great Bend region of the Red River, the disputed territory where today's northwestern Louisiana, southwestern Arkansas, southeastern Oklahoma, and northeastern Texas meet. See, people are still fighting over this land. See? These boundaries, they're saying, were established by cultural affiliation. See? You can read up more on this no man's land and what was included in that area and what they were fighting over. But they were saying that there was a huge issue with outlaws. I'm trying to find it. The outlaws would go there, which I like that word because, Texas, the Longhorns, the Cowboys versus the Indians. The Cowboys are Leah's sons, guys. Leah represents the wild ox, guys, the cow. Look, they bring in the immigration. Leah represents that. The disputed territory remained disputed because white Americans desired the lands for themselves. They ignored the Mexican citizenship to own and traffic people. They were extremely hostile against Native people who had poured into the disputed land to take up Mexican land grants after losing their homelands to the state, naively believing that here they could be safe from Anglo violence and deceit. The Americans were so outraged by their own removal from their preemptions inside the Indian Territory Act, right? They had removed themselves. Right? And it was established right here to protect the Native people from exactly this kind of violence. This is why so many of the American immigrants into the disputed territory signed the Texas Declaration of Independence. They lent troops and money. They had Davy Crockett to command and join the Texas Revolution. It still exists between Texas and Oklahoma. They wanted this territory. Highly disputed, guys. You do your own research on this no man's land area. I keep trying to find where this might be the one right here. And I brought this one in because they referenced these guys as the Wildmen, which I think is pretty funny, given that we know that portrait of the Wildmen, right? The German Wildmen that invade the castle of the Moors, right? Right? The wild men versus the Moors. I'm looking at Judah as the Moors, guys. Got to be. During World War One, beyond the wire, away from the confines of the trench, lived the wild men of no man's land. These soldiers, I'm telling you, that wild man stands out to me, guys, because it makes me think of the wild men versus the Moors. These soldiers, stragglers from 7 armies that clashed on the battlefield of Europe, came together as a band of deserters to make a home in the desolate space between their warring countrymen, slipping into abandoned trenches to scavenge for loot and food to stay alive. In the First Global War, they became soldiers with no nation. The most gruesome accounts of the so-called wild men suggest they were flesh-eating savages, while modern evocations say they might have renounced the title of soldier. Let me pull this down so y'all gotta watch that mess down here. Let me close it, as a matter of fact. They renounced the title of soldier altogether to simply become human beings caring for one another, no matter what uniform they were wearing. In that literal and metaphorical space of no man's land, legends of nicety and ghoulishness were born, and while some are rooted in history, others are pure fiction. Let me close this one at the top. Since the war ended, military raconteurs have told many a version of this story through historical fiction, begging questions about where this tale originated and if there's any truth to it. It says that according to this lieutenant colonel in the British cavalry who penned the squadron, he swore the wild men were real, comprised of British, French, Australian, German deserters who lived there underground like ghouls among the moldering dead and came out at night to plunder and kill. Wow. So they got tales of this place, guys. Whether this is fictional or true, it was something about that wild men name that they gave themselves that made me question, were these wild men that are depicted in that tapestry of the wild men versus the Moors? And it would make sense that it would be, because in one of those tapestries you see the budding staff of Aaron and Moses. So you bring in Aaron and Moses trying to strike the rock in that picture. You see them trying to strike the dragon. I've shown you guys this picture. And you see them warring. I don't need to bring this one in. You see them warring. Was it this one? Oh, where was that at, guys? You see them warring with Ephraim and Judah, represented as the lion. And you see Judah represented as the, I'm going to remove that, guys. You see Judah represented as the lion, and you see Ephraim represented as the unicorn. And Ephraim has spots. Man, I should pause it and go get it for y'all. Let me go get it. Okay, guys. And these tapestries right here. All right, let's get to it. I've shown this to y'all before, but I'm going to show it to the people who just got here. Notice these dudes. See, this guy got a budding staff. Who was said to have a budding staff? Aaron. So you could best believe this is Aaron and Moses right here. You see they cross the sticks. You see the sticks cross, right? So, okay. Aaron and Moses warring with the Moors, right? Wild men. Now, I want you to see this one with the unicorn and the lion. This one right here. Now, I hope they would show me this, the full one. Here we go. Pay attention to this, guys. Right? You see Moses, right? And you see Aaron, right? Ready to club the vessels. See the vessels going down to the dragon. This is the underground oil source, guys. You see the vessels. right? It's them striking the water. But check out over here. They're fighting the lion, right? Divide and conquer. They've divided them. And look, they're fighting the unicorn. I don't make this stuff up. And look, the unicorn is sick because they done gave the unicorn, done gave himself to the daughters and gotten sick. See? Mm-hmm. At Balpeor, everything I say gonna check out. Watch what I tell you. Am I running out of storage space? Hold on, let me pause this. Free up some storage. All right, well, we got more space. I know we won't cut off. But yeah, this is what's going on in this. So I thought it was important to bring that article in, discussing those wild men, because it's pretty strange they would give themselves that specific title, you know? And they show up during World War One, right? During that first Confederacy to divide and conquer, right? The wild men versus the Moors. There was a lot going on in this tapestry, guys, whether you noticed it or not. I'm here to help, no worries. Now check out this, right, guys? Let's keep moving. Because Oklahoma was a pretty big deal, right, in this whole Louisiana purchase. It becomes a pretty big deal. You know, it's part of the whole westward expansion. Between 1803 and 1886, the people and institution of the United States expand into what is now Oklahoma, right? That Confederacy, the Davidic Confederacy, becomes the United States, believe it or not. This phenomenon did not take place in isolation, nor was it a sequence of random events that were of little consequence to the basic sweep of national development. Instead, it was part of a much larger story that was programmed intentionally by Eastern centers of power to meet predetermined objectives. The agents of expansion consequently usually found in Oklahoma what they were looking for. Exploitable resources. Natural resources, commercial opportunities, and agricultural paradise were right here. A great American desert, a resettlement zone, and military and administrative problem. Oklahoma did not become part of the United States until 1803, when the new American Republic acquired the Louisiana Purchase. The U.S. Congress divided the purchased domain into two territories, Orleans in the south and Louisiana in the north. The territory of Louisiana included what is now Oklahoma and had its administrative center at St. Louis. See, they had a city. They got one. I'm proposing that's one of their cities, and possibly New Orleans. In 1812, northern Louisiana became the territory of Missouri. In 1819, southern Louisiana, including Oklahoma, was organized as the territory of Arkansas. The territorial governors of Arkansas exercised administrative jurisdiction over Oklahoma for the next 30 years. President Thomas Jefferson believed Louisiana was the stuff of empire. For the United States, it could provide needed natural resources, living room for an expanding population, a barrier against foreign aggression, opportunities for profitable commerce, and the space for resettlement of Eastern Indians. The resettlement, huh? Jefferson recognized, however, the effective use of Louisiana's resources required what they needed was some slaves, some people to dig this stuff out. That effective use of Louisiana resources required better knowledge of its people, its topography, its flora and fauna, its rocks and minerals. His desire for that kind of information caused him and his successor to dispatch a series of military expeditions to undertake scientific exploration of the province once it passed into possession of the United States. Mary Lewis and William Clark, the priest and the scribe, commanded the earliest and best known of these expeditions between 1804 and 1806. and sex trafficked a little girl. They left that part out. It gathered detailed information about the northern reaches of Louisiana. They did this with the help of Sacagawea. They didn't know diddly squat. In addition to impressing the Indians about power and might of who? The great father in Washington, huh? So now we know who they're revering when they say this father stuff, right? The great father in Washington. What it had done in the North, Jefferson hoped that other expeditions could do in the South and Southwest. In 1806, the president dispatched two of these. One, led by Captain Richard Sparks, was to ascend the Red River to Wichita villages and then go by horseback to Rocky Mountains. I'm sure he had somebody held captive, a woman. The other, commanded by Captain Zebulon, right? You hear these names? Zebulon, right? Ain't that the name of one of these tribes? Come on, man. Captain Zebulon M. Pike was to search out the origins of the Red River by going overland to where the Rockies, the everlasting hills, then south to the river, right? The dew from heaven, confronted early by units of Spanish cavalry. Don't forget the Ogallala aquifers under all of this. The Sparks expedition, also known as the Freeman-Custis expedition or Red River expedition, aborted without achieving any of its goals. The Pike expedition, however, was more successful and heralded important consequences for Oklahoma. So you can read more about this Pike expedition and look. Look. Here you go. Divide and conquer. Didn't we just bring in the Wildmen? Watch this. As brutal as the crossing had been, Wilkinson's report to the Jefferson administration contributed much to the knowledge base of southern Louisiana and Oklahoma, right? They in that land strip. They in no man's land, guys. He established that Osage Indians were numerous and at war with intruder Eastern Indians. You see that? These Eastern Indians are intruding. See? Divide and conquer, and the wild men are here. So that tapestry is here. When I showed you them showing each other at war between each other, that the resettled Eastern Indians were at war with the Indians who had already been settled there. So the wild men enter in and they divide and conquer to gain control of that well, of that dragon, of that fossil fuel. Okay? It's showing you it in the tapestry. I hope anybody listening that's been with me for a while is following this. If you following this, let me know that in the chat section, please. In the comment section down below. He recorded that the exploitable resources seemed abundant, for he had heard of lead mines and salt-encrusted prairie, right? Now, they need saltpeter to make their ammunition, right? They're running out of all of this stuff. Wilkinson also made particular note of a 7-foot waterfall on the Arkansas River. See? Nothing intrigued them more than his report to reference to a salt prairie, which renowned interest in long circulating rumors about a salt mountain. He said there were vast sheets of salt glistening like a field of snow. Oklahoma had an exhaustible store of ready-made salt just waiting to enter into channels of commerce. See, that's all they saw was ways to make money. He said Oklahoma was a place of natural wonder and economic promise. Brilliancy of tropical productions. Look how it looked here. You think Oklahoma looked like that now? They went to the Rocky Mountains, and then they went down to the Arkansas River. They said it was cold. Some people abandoned it. Yeah, you guys need to just, come on over to this page. I just don't want to make this episode too long. Look, some Americans traversed Oklahoma in the interest of scientific knowledge. Others explored it in the interest of financial profit. Among the latter were the Chateau brothers, Pierre and Auguste, as well as Joseph Boggy, who had established profitable fur trading houses in the Three Forks regions. That Joseph Boggy stuff is reminding me of that Joseph Radin story, which is kind of giving me Joseph the Fugger of the Lilies. And they were in the Three Forks region, right? Which we know the mounds were there. So they're decimating the area where the mounds are at, guys. They have taken over control from the matriarchy. It's right here in your face. Thanks to the great father, Thanks to their great father. And every week you want me to sit in your church and talk about father. Man, listen. Y'all better get acquainted with mama. You better get acquainted with mother. They brought in this father nonsense to you. It was always mother. But they don't like mother so much that they want you calling the potato la papa. The potato used to be called la mama. It looks like an impregnated vegetable, just like the gourd. Okay? These melons are shaped this way to tell you they are the essence of life, man. She is the essence of life. And you have gone out this week and randomly attacked them. Go to the community page. There are women being randomly attacked. One dude ran into Barnes and Noble and stabbed a woman and said she was the closest thing to him. I doubt that. I bet you this man ran past many men to get to her. Why ain't no random attacks on dudes? Man, listen. You see me as the vulnerable creature. I put one up there. The dude beat up two girls because they disrespected his woman. And I see dudes in the chat talking about, equal rights, equal fights, and laughing and thinking this joint funny. And like I told them, try that up against a 9. You try to punch a 9, a bullet from a 9 coming at you. Try to do that. These are the other sons. These are the other sons. That toxic masculinity that I've been talking about. Let's keep going. So they up in the holiest of the holies, guys. They are up in the mound area, okay? This is about the same time the United States acquired Louisiana. See, it's all going together. They wanted knowledge of the Oklahoma resources and people. And these people made the discoveries. Along with this guy, Bell, right? They had hunters because they were taking these furs. In 1808, Glass spent most of the year with the Wichita Indians at their twin village sites, trading for horses and searching for meteorite the tribe considered sacred. So they were looking for some sacred rocks, Who brought in some sacred rocks a week or two ago? No, it was a little longer. I did, right? The ephod stones that are all seeming like they coming from here. We got bears, we got condors, we got acacia trees, gopher trees, incense trees, all of the stones, everything's here in the North and South America region. Okay? You might got a few of these stones scattered other places, but you ain't got them animals. Australia. Well, Australia has Tasmanian devils, right? Kangaroos, wallabies, right? They don't got no condor. And they damn sure ain't got a bear. Africa might have these stones, but they ain't got a bear. And they damn sure ain't got a condor. So we're back at the Americas. Shout out to the front line. I need my flowers. All right, let's get down to following the negotiations of the Adams Onis Treaty, right, with Spain. Adam, got to be brought into it. They foreshadow an even greater commercial, natural, and strategic interest. What I told you. That's why you see the Wildmen fighting these people, fighting them over the vessels, right? What are vessels? God damn it, they took it away from me. No, here it goes. Here it goes. They're fighting over the resources. You think it's a joke. They are fighting over the resources. And you see the two sticks together. All right, where to go? Oh, that was the other one. When I show you Aaron and Moses crossing the stick. But you see the vessels. And you see they have divided the tribes. Even greater commercial, natural, and strategic interests in Oklahoma. Among other things, the treaty set the southern and western boundaries with Texas. Spain had hoped this a clearly defined border would assure its continued possession of Mexico. But its officials miscalculated. In 1823, the colony declared and won its independence. This galvanized the Three Forks traders and merchants into extraordinary commercial activity. See? They rejected their stuff. They wouldn't buy. Yeah, y'all need to get into this story here. He wanted to relocate the Indian people east of the Mississippi River, who declined to embrace the culture and political sovereignty of the people and government of the United States. See? These people wasn't rolling with them. By 1820, this aspiration had become settled government policy. It was first voluntary, then mandated. Government officials very early selected Oklahoma, already identified in the national psyche as marginally used for agriculture, as suitable Indian colonization zone or Indian territory. No decision or event impacted Oklahoma more. Most obvious was the tens of thousands of tribal people poured into the region. See, the first people that were there knew not to defile the land. See, it was to keep the peace of the resident tribes, which was the Osage, Wichita, Apache, Comanche, and Kiowa, and immigrant tribes of the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Greek, and Seminole. Remember when we did the database of the oil payment systems, right? Who did we see in here? Who did we see getting money still from Tulsa? The Choctaws. See? The Osage, Wichita, Apache, Comanche, Kiowa, these might be fake names, but the original people that were there were not decimating the land and striking the rock. The invading tribes, right, the southern tribes, began to strike the rock. And as a result, they began to bring in Black Wall Street, right? They began to bring in all of this money, right? The Anglos saw that and was like, oh, hell no, they getting all this money for this stuff. We need to gain control of this region. And that's why it's the first place bombed. This is why they keep saying a country that bombed its own residents. Yeah, it wasn't its own residents. They realized they had given control to this region, to this immigrant population of this tribe who knew how to refine this stuff. And as a result, they did. And when they refined it, they were selling it to the world. It became the oil capital of the world, Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is how they got Black Wall Street. I already covered this. Okay. Once they realized, hey, these Eastern Indians that we done immigrated over here, they know how to refine this stuff, and they're making boatloads of money. They're making all kinds of money. Them Anglos had to come in and get that money back. Check it out. Early on, the conflict between the two groups threatened to undermine the entire removal policy by discouraging Eastern immigration. To institute and force a peace, the Army first established Fort Smith on Arkansas River, Fort Gibbon on the Neosho River, and Fort Townsend on the Red River. As Indian removal accelerated during the presidency of Andrew Jackson, tension between the immigrant tribes and the resident tribes, especially the Plains tribes, increased. See, this is around 1834, right? This is enough time for them to build up and start to refine to become the oil capital in the 1920s. This is like 90 years later. The number of posts more than doubled, including Fort Coffee. See, they realize this area is we need to gain control. The army seldom, if ever, left one of these posts to do battle with a hostile tribe. Commanders often dispatched troops on reconnaissance missions designed to impress all tribal groups with the military muscle of the United States. They still do that. They still do that. Try to flex their muscle with their little parades, with the squeaky toys. While the Army was facilitating the occupation of Oklahoma by tens of thousands of Eastern Indians, it was also marking trails and building roads utilized by both Indians and non-Indians. See, they brought in Eastern Indians and swapped the Western Indians with the Eastern Indians. They sent your asses to the East, right? But I found my way back to the West, and so did my family. Shout out to Unifiers and Chanel. The Army was facilitating the occupation of Oklahoma by tens of thousands of Eastern Indians. It was also marking trails and building roads utilizing both Indians and non-Indians, right? Forced labor. The more important of these were local roads that connected the different forts. Some roads, however, had national significance. In 1849, following the discovery of gold in California, oil, black gold, so in 1861, most of Jefferson's expectations for the Louisiana Purchase had been realized, at least in Oklahoma. Early officials and unofficial exploring parties demonstrated that it was a land of natural beauty brimming with exploitable resources. See? He just wanted the resources. Oklahoma had commercial potential, especially in exchange with Osage, Wichita, Comanche, and Kiowa, but also a gateway to Santa Fe and even California. The successful concentration of Eastern Indians illustrated the appropriateness of Oklahoma as a resettlement zone for tribal people who did not welcome American hegemony. In the administrative peacekeeping activities undertaken by the U.S. Army proved that colonies like Indian Territory were expansive. In all of this, Oklahoma faithfully fulfilled the expectation of Eastern centers of economic and political power, a pattern of cause and effect that shaped the course of the state's history then and now. See? Oh, we just read that one, sorry. We're almost out of here, guys. I'm going to bring in the definition of okla, which is actually a Hebrew word. Food, eating, right? An object of devouring, right? Exploitable resources by who? Wild beasts, right? By the Wildmen, right? Who bought? Listen, I'm on a roll today. Check me out. Listen, get out of my way. Get out of my way. We on to something big here. We are bringing in the wild beast, right? The wild beast, the wild men. That area is exploitable resources being consumed by the wild men. So we have the oak law. Let's bring in the Homa. It's all feminine. See, it was all belonging to the woman. Feminine actival particle of unused root, apparently meaning to join a wall of protection. Didn't I tell you the mounds were there? What did they say the mounds were? Right? A hill, a wall of protection in a sense, right? Because you couldn't just shoot up at that wall. You couldn't do none of that. And this Homa is referenced all through the book. Okay? But did you know that this was half of the word of Oklahoma? No, did you? Now, remember, I told you to remember some of these cities and these pipelines, right? The Netherlands, right? Oklahoma, the Cushing Extension Pipeline. So remember the Louisiana Purchase outline, right? This is all what was purchased in this Louisiana purchase, guys. This is all that was purchased. Oil from Canada. The recently completed Keystone Pipeline carries high pollutant tar, right? The bitumen, from Alberta, Canada to Oklahoma and Illinois. A second pipeline would extend to refineries in the Gulf Coast in Texas. See, they want to bring it all together. Look at the Port Authority. Who gave them the authority? Huh? The Pope? See some of these cities? You see them, right? I mean, states, but could they be cities? Let me see. St. Louis was mentioned under that Louisiana pipeline purchase, right, guys? Now, I bring in, see the tar sands? They're bringing in from Canada up there, that ink blot. You see it. And you're going to see St. Louis over there. You got Omaha, Nebraska, Steel City, right? They mentioned in some cities. Billings. I mean, they're mentioning some cities in this picture here. We got Houston, Dallas, Cushing, St. Louis, Steel City, and Billings. That looked like 6 cities to me, guys. Right? We got Houston, Dallas, Cushing, that's 3. St. Louis is 4. Steel City, 5. You got Billings over here. Well, you got Seattle. You got a few cities mentioned here. But in this Louisiana purchase area, actually, is what I should be focusing on. I don't know if I can count Billings and Seattle. Let's count over here. Houston, Dallas, Cushing, Steel City, that's 4. St. Louis, maybe Pawtucket, maybe Omaha. I don't know, guys, but I'm definitely thinking Houston, Dallas, and Cushing. I mean, we see a lot of murders right now in Houston as it is. St. Louis, we already know is a definite. But pay attention. They got the Ogallala Aquifer, right? The Dew from Heaven. The Sand Hills, which is the, help me out, guys. The Fat of the Earth. And the Everlasting Hills. See that? The Rockies. All of this is included in this. Gave you the authority, huh? Pay attention to these lots. You see these lots? Pay attention to that. But here's the America map, and you see where they came in through, right? You see where their area of focus was. You know, you see what their area of focus was about. And I told you to pay attention to those lots for a reason. I will gather all nations. Who's the father of all the nations? And bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. There I will put them on trial for what they did to my inheritance, my people Israel, because they scattered my people among nations and divided up my land. Who did what? They scattered my people. This is just for Israel. It don't say Israel and Judah because there's only Israel. Judah is the leech attached to Israel. So if you scream in Judah, you are screaming the name of a betrayer, a Canaanite leech. Now, if you want to go be that, you can go on over there and be that. I'm screaming Ephraim when I talk Israel. And who did what? They divided up my land. Whoa. They in trouble, boy. They divided up my land. Remember I told you pay attention to these little boxes down here. Notice the land ain't divided up here. See that? Indian territory is not divided up. Now you see these invading nations, but prior to their invasion, it wasn't divided up. Their names weren't there. It still wasn't divided up. But look, Castro, Lynn, these are their names. These are their families. See? That's what's going on here. And this is what the Wildmen do when they get here. They divide up the land. See? You're going to be on trial, nations, for what you did to the people of Israel. And you scattered the people and divided up the land. Yeah, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Now, who did they make these deals with, though? Because I think the people who made these deals are in trouble. Con Comley. Spelled variously as Comley, Kumkumli, was a prominent Chinook citizen and leader whose people lived on the north side of the Columbian estuary on the shores of Haley's Bay. On November 17, 1805, he introduced himself to Lewis and Clark, the priest and the scribe at Station Camp. Right? Lewis and Clark, right? The chief of the nation below us came up to see us, wrote Clark. The name of the nation is Chinook, and it is numerous. They live principally on fish, roots, a few elk, and fowl. They are well armed with good fusees. He was a power broker on the lower Columbia River. When John Jacob Astor's fur trader, Astor, John Jacob, didn't I tell you this fur trader keep being named Jacob, Joseph, right? Established their post at where Astoria. Astor dipped his foot in oil. In 1811, Con Comley offered his warriors to help them defend themselves against the British. But when the British seized the fort in 1812, he astutely switched sides. He's a traitor. Con Comley is believed to have died about 1830 during an epidemic of intermittent fever. You sound like you're the unicorn with the spots on you that betrayed Ephraim, Con Comley. You got sick, Like in that picture, You're a betrayer. At first you was on this side, then you was on that side. You're a man, not sent to represent anybody with these fake goddamn treaties. A half-king, right? I keep telling y'all about these men that betrayed us and went behind the matriarchal systems and was meeting with men who only wanted to meet with men. Here goes one right here. He got intermittent fever, also called cold sick, probably malaria. No, probably some goddamn STD, right? Because you probably took one of the daughters of their nation, right, as symbolic ritual that plagued the coastal area for several years, it says. We're right here. His remains were entered into a canoe, according to Chinook customs, in his family burial ground near Point Ellis. Okay? In 1835, a Hudson Bay Company doctor named Gardiner robbed the coffin of the chief's skull and sent it to Scotland for scientific study. They want to know, what kind of man is this that would betray his own people? Some of Khan Comley's people placed the rest of his bones in a wooden box and carried them to the hill behind present-day Astoria, overlooking the river. The tomb there was in ruins when the agate recreated the scene with his pen in 1841. When agate. See, they revering this mofo. I wonder why. This is an example, guys, of the spotted unicorn named Khan Comley. The artist Paul Kane never mentions visiting Astoria, but his landscape log identifies these burials as the grave of Khan Comley at Astoria, chief of the Chinooks. You can't be chief because Sarah was chief, okay? This right here is some Abrahamic stuff. I've raised up my hands. I will lift up mine hands to the Most High God. You want to be like Abraham, Khan Comley. You want to take her place when you ain't got no goddamn business. She was the book. All right? That's why she got the shepherd hook. That's why she got the egg. She is the Torah. Honor the mother. Honor the law of your mother. Honor your mother's Torah. You ain't supposed to have the book, homie. Y'all made this stuff. Matter of fact, I'm going to take you to a verse to prove they made this stuff. At the end of this, I ain't going to keep you much longer. Everywhere he wrote, the burial canoe was placed on a fallen pine tree of immense size, some 40 to 50 feet in circumference. A fallen pine tree. See the symbology? On top of the fallen tree. I told you when Solomon sends in, God damn it. When Solomon sends in the axe cutter, man, that is reference to cut down the cedars of Lebanon. That is allegory for killing the wise woman. Look what they did. They put his canoe on top of a fallen pine tree, right? He betrayed the matriarchy. And his name was Khan Comley. Making secret deals with Lois and Clark, huh? Yeah, you was a half-king. Why did the priest travel? We already did that one. Oh, this is what I was having. What half-king met with Lois and Clark? Khan Comley. You see? You see? The primary half-king or prominent leader who met with Lois and Clark on the Columbia River was Khan Comley, a Chinook leader. He introduced himself to the expedition. Okay? He was an influential Chinook chief who facilitated trade. He couldn't have been no chief. You see that? And interactions between Lewis and Clark. While the term half-king is often historically associated with him. See? Half-king. Why are you a half-king? Khan is a title of Central Asian origin, likely from the Proto-Turkic or ruling Mongolia. Now, who became the Turks, y'all? Stephen the Moor. Okay? Judah is a Moor. Okay? So Khan is a Moor. It is a contraction of the older form Kagan and was popularized by nomadic tribes like the Go-Turks, later becoming synonymous with leaders like Genghis Khan. It's a Turkic word, okay? It translates to Lord, Prince, or Ruler, the second bullet, and was intentionally used for rulers, officials, and military leaders. It's used by a hijack. It's so funny that everybody, 45, 47, only talk about fraud and all of this, and I already showed you. He just want to close the door behind himself. So the same ones running around calling themselves Khans, right? Or and highlighting hijacks are the hijack themselves. Because there was only woman chief here, homie. This is a hijack. Sarah is the chief. Made so by our Creator. Raised up above the same half-king Khan bullshit. You have no authority. You've given yourself fake authority by half-kings. I'm here to tell you. You better wake up, homie, because you're going to find yourself on trial in that valley of Jehoshaphat. because you would be amongst the people that divided up the land. This Khan Kamli half king helped to divide up the land. Fake chiefs. You see it. Second bullet, it translates to Lord, Prince, or Chief. Fake chief, fake military leader. Because we saw Deborah, a man afraid to go out to war without Deborah. But there's no story of Deborah. A woman holding trial all of this, and there's no stories of Huldah. Not Huldah, sorry. Deborah, the bee. Where are these stories of these women? These chiefs, man, that y'all buried, all right, that Levi helped to bury, right? Because Levi is the Catholic priest. I already showed you he's the great-grandfather, Moses, right? The great-grandfather of the first Holy Roman Emperor. He's the chief, man. All of our books are under your Vatican. And you mofos helped. See that? Sovereign of the King of Kings. But it was an evil thing to ask for a king. Through the Mongol Empire and subsequent Turkish immigrants. See? What I tell you, man. What I tell you. Dang, I was supposed to show y'all something at the end of this. Can't remember what it was. But I'll listen to this again, you know what I'm saying, and remember what it was. And I'll make sure to bring it in the next episode. All right, shout out to you guys, and thanks for tuning in. I've missed you guys. But I'm on the land, so I'm charged up. Me and Uniphys and Chanel's coming soon. So, you know, that Trinity is getting ready to arrive. Watch out now. All right, much love to you, and thanks for everybody who checked in, and thank you to everybody who helped me get there. You know, anybody who sent me something financially, I really appreciate you. You know, special shout out to Israel, and a shout out to Sister Yolanda. I couldn't have done it without you guys, and I truly, truly appreciate you. Much love to you and Mama Lee. Mama Lee, I had my strong coffee while we was baking and brewing. Shout out to you. Take care, guys. See you next week on the front line.